The mathematics of that night would puzzle German intelligence for the rest of the war. 7 out of 12 bombers were destroyed in complete darkness, an astounding 58% kill rate that defied everything previously known about anti-aircraft warfare. Even in broad daylight, anti-aircraft guns averaged 1 kill per 2,500 shells fired. The surviving German crews reported something unprecedented: flak bursts that shadowed their every maneuver, explosions placed precisely where the aircraft would be moments later, anti-aircraft fire that seemed to anticipate their decisions before they made them. What dismantled those bombers wasn't superior marksmanship or chance. It was the SCR-584, an automatic microwave radar tracking system that transformed air defense. Developed by the MIT Radiation Laboratory, the SCR-584 could detect, track, and direct anti-aircraft guns with astonishing precision. Wikipedia +1. By using conical scanning and servo systems, it could keep its antenna locked on a target and feed real-time aiming data to the gun crews. Wikipedia. The system could detect bomber-sized targets at ranges of up to about 40 miles, with range accuracy around 25 yards and angular accuracy of 1 mil, 0.06 degree, in both azimuth and elevation. Wikipedia. The British and American forces deployed SCR-584 units to key points in the European theater. They were especially effective during events like the defense of beachheads in Italy, e.g. Anzio, and encountering the German V-1 buzz bombs. Wikipedia was one. The radar didn't just make better gunners, it made gunnery automatic. Because the Germans never recognized or countered the full impact of SCR-584, they effectively walked into the future of warfare unawares. Their aircraft flew into zones where defenses had become predictive rather than reactive. The Luftwaffe's crisis had been building since 1940, when British scientists delivered a gift to America that would change the war: the 10-mm cavity magnetron, handed over through the Tizard mission. This compact, high-power microwave generator was the key to the next generation of radar. Neither ally fully foresaw the consequences of this exchange, but it opened the door to technologies the Germans could not match. While German engineers continued refining conventional meter-wave radar, the Americans, working at MIT's Radiation Laboratory, were moving into uncharted territory. The result was the SCR-584, a technological marvel of its era. It could detect aircraft at ranges up to 40 miles and pinpoint them with a range accuracy of about 75 feet. Operating at microwave frequencies, 700 to 2900 MHz, corresponding to a 10-11 centimeter wavelength, it emitted 300 kilowatt pulses lasting just 0.8 microseconds at a repetition rate of 1,170 pulses per second. For German radar warning receivers, designed to pick up British systems in the 200-600 MHz band, the SCR-584 was invisible. To them, the skies seemed dark and silent even as their aircraft were being stalked. The gap wasn't just one of frequency, it was conceptual. The SCR-584 incorporated automatic tracking with conical scanning, a breakthrough that allowed the radar to lock onto a target and follow its every move without constant human adjustment. This wasn't simply better radar. It was a leap into predictive automated warfare, one the Luftwaffe had no answer for. The conical scan of the SCR-584 radar created a rotating, cone-shaped beam that could lock onto and follow a moving aircraft without human adjustment. Once integrated with the M9 gun director, an analog computer packed with 160 vacuum tubes, the system became something entirely new. The M9 could generate firing solutions 30 times per second, compensating for wind, air density, target speed, and gravity in real time. When the system was first deployed at Anzio, it marked a watershed in anti-aircraft warfare. For a full week, German air raids ceased. A lone aircraft sent to probe the defenses was immediately destroyed. Within days, 10 more SCR-584 units were brought online, and the air threat to Anzio effectively vanished. What stunned German bomber crews was the system's automation. Once an operator acquired a target and switched the radar into automatic tracking, the machine did the rest. The SCR-584 locked onto the aircraft, fed precise data to the M9, and slaved 4 90mm guns to move in synchronized unison. The result was uncanny. Surviving German crews described flak bursts that seemed to predict their every move. When they dove, shells detonated at the bottom of the dive. When they banked, explosions traced their future flight path. What they faced was not improved aim, but a predictive weapon system, a machine that could outthink human reflexes. For the Luftwaffe, this was something entirely new. They had stumbled into the age of automated warfare, and they had no answer for it. This wasn't the familiar curtain of barrage fire. It was precision shooting by machines, calculating trajectories faster than any human could react. While German scientists were handcrafting radar sets in workshops, the United States was mass-producing the SCR-584 with Detroit's assembly line efficiency. Chrysler Corporation, better known for automobiles than electronics, took on the challenge. By applying interchangeable parts and modular design, they turned what had once been artisan engineering into an industrial process. These radar units, specially waterproofed for the amphibious assault, created an unprecedented defensive umbrella over history's largest invasion fleet. Oberst Joseph Pips Priller, one of only 2 Luftwaffe pilots to strafe the Normandy beaches on D-Day, survived to recall the experience. In his post-war debriefing, he described anti-aircraft fire unlike anything in 5 years of combat. It wasn't random barrages, but precision bursts that forced constant evasive maneuvers, leaving no opportunity for accurate attacks. The Luftwaffe's failure at Normandy was not from lack of courage or skill. It was because German pilots had flown straight into a technological snare they could neither see nor comprehend. Survivors spoke of the same uncanny phenomenon reported earlier at Anzio, flak bursts that seemed to anticipate their next move. The system's full power, however, would be revealed not over the beaches of Normandy, but in the skies of southern England. In 1944, Hitler unleashed his Vergeltungswaffen, the V-1 flying bombs. Traveling at 400 Meilenkräfte in a straight line at low altitude, they should have been the perfect targets. In practice, their speed and size made them nearly impossible to engage with traditional gun-laying techniques. Even experienced crews with conventional predictors struggled to get near them. It was the SCR-584 that changed the equation. 20 units were rushed to England's Channel coast, their radars slaved to 90mm guns and M9 directors. For the first time in history, an integrated, automated fire control system was able to track and intercept pilotless missiles. What had seemed unstoppable, robotic weapons raining on London, was suddenly vulnerable. The results were staggering. By August 31, 1943, 610 systems had already been shipped. On January 28, 1944, the Dodge Division delivered unit number 1470. By war's end, nearly 3,000 sets had been produced, 628 of them earmarked for the Marines, coastal defense, and spares. Chrysler alone outbuilt the entire German radar industry. The contrast was stark. German Würzburg radars required painstaking assembly by skilled technicians, with each set slightly different from the last. The SCR-584, by contrast, was modular. Broken units could be repaired in the field by soldiers with only basic training. Where Germany built dozens, America built thousands. On June 6, 1944, D-Day, 39 SCR-584 systems were positioned to guard the beaches. Their presence blunted Luftwaffe raids before they could threaten the landings. The same industrial machine that had once put cars in every American driveway had now helped put radar on every Allied beachhead. These radar units, specially waterproofed for the amphibious assault, created an unprecedented defensive umbrella over history's largest invasion fleet. Oberst Joseph Pips Priller, one of only 2 Luftwaffe pilots to strafe the Normandy beaches on D-Day, survived to recall the experience. In his post-war debriefing, he described anti-aircraft fire unlike anything in 5 years of combat. It wasn't random barrages, but precision bursts that forced constant evasive maneuvers, leaving no opportunity for accurate attacks. The Luftwaffe's failure at Normandy was not from lack of courage or skill. It was because German pilots had flown straight into a technological snare they could neither see nor comprehend. Survivors spoke of the same uncanny phenomenon reported earlier at Anzio, flak bursts that seemed to anticipate their next move. The system's full power, however, would be revealed not over the beaches of Normandy, but in the skies of southern England. In 1944, Hitler unleashed his Vergeltungswaffen, the V-1 flying bombs. Traveling at 400 Meilen in a straight line at low altitude, they should have been the perfect targets. In practice, their speed and size made them nearly impossible to engage with traditional gun-laying techniques. Even experienced crews with conventional predictors struggled to get near them. It was the SCR-584 that changed the equation. 20 units were rushed to England's Channel coast, their radars slaved to 90-meter guns and M9 directors. For the first time in history, an integrated, automated fire control system was able to track and intercept pilotless missiles. What had seemed unstoppable, robotic weapons raining on London, was suddenly vulnerable. The 80 heavy guns, coupled with SCR-584 radar and the new proximity-fused shells, transformed southern England into an aerial killing ground. The results were staggering. On one Sunday alone, 97 of 101 V-1s were blasted from the sky. Within the first week of coastal deployment, gunners destroyed 17% of incoming flying bombs. By August 23rd, that figure had climbed to 60%, and in the final week of the month, it peaked at 74%. On one extraordinary day, the system achieved an 82% kill rate. The efficiency gains were just as shocking. Where once it took 2,500 shells to bring down a single target, now a V-1 could be destroyed with barely 100 rounds, a 25-fold leap in effectiveness. German observers on the French coast reported seeing V-1s disintegrate after short, precise bursts of only 3 or 4 shells. Sight that contradicted every doctrine of flak warfare they had relied upon since 1939. The failure to grasp the cause of this transformation lay not in battlefield ignorance, but in a fundamental scientific miscalculation. In January 1943, Germany's leading radar physicists, led by Professor Abraham Esau, advised the High Command that centimeter-wave radar was a physical impossibility. They argued that no usable energy could be reflected at such short wavelengths, rendering the pursuit a waste of resources. Based on this flawed theoretical conclusion, the Reich terminated all microwave radar research. The irony was devastating. Just a month later, in February 1943, German forces recovered a downed British H-2S radar set from a crashed RAF bomber. For the first time, they realized their enemy had successfully mastered centimeter wave systems. By then it was too late. Years of lost research and industrial inertia meant the Reich could never close the gap. German intelligence clung to conventional explanations, imagining Allied gunners had somehow perfected their optics, or that new shell fuses were solely responsible. They consistently failed to identify that what was truly destroying their bombers and V-weapons was an integrated, automated radar fire control system, invisible to their detection networks and beyond their scientific imagination. Pilot reports of impossible accuracy were routinely dismissed by German intelligence. Analysts attributed the losses to better Allied gunnery training, improved optical sights, or simply overwhelming concentrations of flak. The possibility that the Americans had achieved automatic radar tracking at microwave frequencies lay entirely outside German imagination until the war's closing months. Throughout 1944, Luftwaffe electronic warfare units fought with equipment designed for an earlier conflict. The Fuji-227 Flensburg detector searched for Allied emissions between 170 and 220 MHz, while the Fuji-350 Naxos extended coverage into the 2,500–3,750 MHz band, closer to the SCR-584's domain, but still unable to reliably detect its signals. Even more fundamentally, German receivers were built to recognize the intermittent sweeps of search radars. The SCR-584's conical scanning system, which locked continuously onto a single target, generated emission patterns their detectors didn't interpret as a threat. Luftwaffe crews thus flew blind into radar-guided ambushes, their warning systems silent, their doctrine obsolete. Each Allied battery represented an integration of components that Germany could neither detect nor replicate. At its heart was the SCR-584 radar, mass-produced by Chrysler Corporation, generating 300 kilowatts of microwave power, often more than entire German radar stations. Paired with it was the M9 gun director, an analog computer of 160 vacuum tubes performing ballistic calculations 30 times per second, something that in the German system would have required entire teams of human plotters. The system also incorporated a British-designed IFF, Identification Friend or Foe, unit to prevent fratricide, ruggedized servo mechanisms that slaved 490mm guns in perfect synchronization, and modular power systems that could be rapidly deployed with the advancing front. The result was a fully automated, industrialized killing machine, one whose precision fire was not the product of luck, nor training but of engineering superiority. Where German flak remained an artisanal weapon, dependent on operator judgment and hand-built equipment, the Allied system had become an industrial process, machines calculating, tracking, and firing faster than human reflexes could ever hope to match. The integration of radar, computation, and gunnery into a single system represented a conceptual leap German military science had never taken. Designated the SCR-584 anti-aircraft gun-laying system, roughly 1,500 units were deployed in Europe, and the Pacific beginning in early 1944. Each was capable of tracking aircraft at speeds of 600 miles per hour, faster than any operational aircraft of the era, providing a measure of future-proofing that proved decisive when German jets entered combat later that year. Mid-1944, the Luftwaffe was entering a crisis of attrition it could not sustain. General Adolf Galland reported that Luftwaffe Reich lost 38% of its fighter pilots in April 1944 alone, while Luftwaffe III lost 24%. In total, 489 German pilots, 100 of them officers, were killed that month, while training schools could forward only 396 replacements, including just 62 officers. These losses were not caused solely by Allied fighters. Increasingly, seasoned Luftwaffe veterans were dying to anti-aircraft fire that displayed seemingly impossible accuracy. The blow fell hardest on ground attack units, the backbone of Wehrmacht tactical doctrine. Operating at low altitudes within the SCR-584's optimal tracking envelope, Stuka pilots and Focke-Wulf fighter bombers found themselves annihilated by fire that seemed to anticipate every evasive move. In his memoir, The First and the Last, Galland recalled the experience. By 1944, approaching Allied positions meant entering zones where death was mathematically calculated. The guns did not aim where we were, but where we would be. There was no tactic against it, no countermeasure, only luck. The truth of his words was confirmed in December 1944 during the Ardennes offensive, when German forces captured a damaged but intact SCR-584 near St. Vith. The set was rushed to Berlin, where Dr. Hans Pendel, one of Germany's foremost radar scientists, conducted a technical examination. His findings shocked the high command. The Americans, he wrote, have achieved automatic tracking with an accuracy we believed impossible. For the first time, the German leadership grasped the scale of the technological chasm that separated them from their adversaries. By then, however, it was far too late to close it. They operate on wavelengths we cannot detect or jam with existing equipment. Most critically, they mass-produce these systems while we struggle to assemble laboratory prototypes. We are not months behind. We are years behind, with no possibility of catching up. The captured SCR-584 laid bare innovations German science had dismissed as theoretical impossibilities. Automatic radar tracking that maintained lock despite evasive maneuvers, electronic computation of three-dimensional firing solutions, and seamless integration of radar, computer, and gun. It was not just a machine. It was an entire weapons ecosystem, decades ahead of Germany's fragmented developments. But this revelation came too late to alter the war. By early 1945, Luftwaffe pilots were experiencing a new kind of helplessness, facing weapons that stripped away the value of individual skill. This frustration culminated in the January 1945 fighter pilots' revolt, when leading aces, including Adolf Galland, Johannes Steinhoff and Günter Lützow confronted Hermann Göring himself. Johannes Steinhoff, 176 victories to his name, summed up their despair. "We are not fighting enemy pilots anymore. We are fighting mathematics calculated by machines. Individual skill has become irrelevant against automation. You accuse us of lacking courage, but courage cannot defeat technology we do not possess." These were not defeatists, but Germany's most decorated warriors. Their protest was a recognition that traditional martial virtues had become obsolete in the face of automation. Göring's reaction, dismissing Galland from command and threatening court-martial, only underscored the regime's failure to confront technological reality. Even the revolutionary Me-262 jet fighter, Germany's most advanced aircraft, found no escape from the SCR-584. Its 540 mph speed, which made it nearly untouchable to Allied fighters, meant nothing to radar already designed to track targets up to 600 Mach. Oberstleutnant Heinz Baer, one of Germany's most successful jet pilots, later admitted, "We believed our speed would protect us from flak. Instead, we discovered the American guns tracked us perfectly. The shells arrived exactly where we would be. Speed only meant less time to evade. We lost several jets to anti-aircraft fire that exhibited impossible accuracy. The SCR-584's ability to predict, track, and destroy jet aircraft demonstrated a foresight the Luftwaffe simply lacked. Designed in 1942 to defeat aircraft that did not yet exist, it remained effective even against the technological marvels of 1944. The numbers told the story of defeat more clearly than any battle report. American production. Chrysler Corporation alone delivered nearly 2,000 units, with additional sets from General Electric and Westinghouse. Costs dropped from $50,000 to under $10,000 per unit as modular design and assembly line methods took hold. At peak, over 50 units per month rolled out. German production. The entire wartime output of Würzburg radars, Germany's workhorse system, amounted to roughly 1,500 units. All radar types combined, barely 4,000 sets, most of them hand-built, each slightly different, with no meaningful cost reduction across the war. The disparity was not just numerical. It reflected a fundamental divide in industrial philosophy. American engineering emphasized interchangeability, scalability, and speed of production. German science remained trapped in craftsmanship, brilliant prototypes, but limited output. This was the industrial mismatch that doomed Germany. Tactical innovation, jet propulsion, and pilot courage could not bridge a gap measured not just in machines, but in an entire culture of production. The SCR-584 was designed for simplicity. Drafted civilians could be trained to operate it in 6 weeks. By contrast, German radar systems required teams of engineers and technicians with months of specialized education. The differences went beyond technical specifications. They translated into practical battlefield advantages. Rapid deployment, fully operational within 30 minutes of arrival, compared to several hours for German sets. In Italy's fluid campaigns, this mobility meant advancing forces could be shielded almost instantly. All-weather reliability. The SCR-584 functioned in rain, snow, and fog, conditions that blinded optical and degraded German radar. Ease of maintenance. Modular construction allowed operators to swap components in the field. German systems required specialist technicians for even minor repairs. Crew efficiency. 3 operators sufficed, compared to 8 for the German Würzburg. The impact was immediate and devastating. Field Marshal Albert Kesselring admitted after the war, "American radar-controlled anti-aircraft fire made our tactical air support impossible by early 1944. The Wehrmacht, pioneer of blitzkrieg and combined arms warfare, suddenly found itself fighting blind, while the Allies observed everything from above. The campaign against the V-1 flying bombs revealed the true scale of this revolution in numbers no one could ignore. Week 1, 17% interception, using conventional methods. Week 4, 60% interception. Week 8, 74% average interception. Best day, 82% interception. Ammunition efficiency improved 25-fold, from 1 kill per 2,500 rounds to 1 per 100. This was not evolution. It was the moment. Defensive firepower surpassed offense. These statistics marked the first time in military history that defensive firepower consistently outperformed the offense. The V-1, a primitive cruise missile, should have been an easy target, flying at a constant altitude along predictable paths. Yet at 400 mph, it had proven almost invulnerable to conventional anti-aircraft fire. The SCR-584 ended that advantage. German electronic warfare, so effective against early British radars, proved useless here. The Luftwaffe's sophisticated jamming equipment, built for meter-band systems, had no impact on microwave frequencies. Chaff, cut to confuse long-wavelength radars, fell harmlessly against centimeter-wave beams. The failure wasn't just technical, it was doctrinal. German planners assumed Allied systems operated on comparable principles. The idea that America had leapt to an entirely different technological regime never entered their calculations until it was too late. By the time captured equipment revealed the truth, Germany lacked both the resources and the time to design countermeasures. The consequences went far beyond the destruction of aircraft and missiles. The SCR-584 blinded German intelligence. Reconnaissance aircraft that once directed Wehrmacht planning could no longer survive over Allied lines. Without aerial observation, commanders were forced to attack in the dark. General der Panzertruppe Hasso von Manteuffel, commanding the 5th Panzer Army during the Battle of the Bulge, admitted after the war, "We attacked blind in the Ardennes. Our reconnaissance aircraft could not survive over Allied lines. We knew nothing of enemy reserves or movements. What destroyed the Luftwaffe, in the end, was not just superior numbers in the air, but a revolution in electronic warfare on the ground, one they never saw coming. The element of surprise, so essential to German tactics, became impossible when only one side could see. For Luftwaffe crews, the SCR-584 was more than a weapon. It was a psychological breaking point. Death came not from a duel of skill, but from machines that stripped away the very meaning of combat. Veteran pilots who had survived hundreds of missions, mastered every evasive trick, and earned their nation's highest honors, suddenly found themselves helpless. The testimony of survivors conveys this despair. Hermann Heinrich Baer, who ended the war with 220 aerial victories, confessed, "Fighting enemy pilots was war as we understood it. Skill against skill, courage against courage. But the radar-guided guns weren't warfare. They were execution by mathematics. There was no honor in dying to a machine's calculations." This was more corrosive than fear of death. Luftwaffe pilots had long accepted mortality as part of their warrior ethic. What they could not accept was irrelevance, the reduction of their skill and courage to meaningless variables in an equation they could neither see nor influence. After Germany's surrender, Allied intelligence officers demonstrated the SCR-584 to captured Luftwaffe officers. Their reactions ranged from stunned amazement to bitter resignation. Some felt relief at finally understanding what they had faced. Others admitted anger at their own leader's blindness. Dr. Wilhelm Runge, one of Germany's leading radar scientists, reflected in 1985, "We dismissed every report that contradicted our assumptions about American capabilities. We created elaborate theories to explain impossible anti-aircraft accuracy rather than accept the simple truth. They had better technology. That arrogance cost thousands of lives. In the end, the SCR-584 did more than destroy planes. It destroyed illusions that courage alone could master the battlefield. That skill could always overcome machines." The German military's failure to recognize American technological superiority was not just an oversight, it was cultural. The Wehrmacht, which had pioneered combined arms warfare and early radar applications in the 1930s, simply could not imagine that American engineers had surpassed German science. To the German high command, the United States was an industrial giant, but not an intellectual one. This arrogance blinded them, even as mounting evidence throughout 1944 pointed to a revolution they could not explain. After the war, the SCR-584 did not vanish with victory. Its design principles, automatic radar tracking, computer-controlled prediction, and seamless system integration formed the conceptual foundation for modern air defense. Adapted into post-war systems such as the AN/MPQ-12 and AN/MPM-38 and integrated into the MGM-5 Corporal Field Artillery Missile Program, its influence extended far beyond World War II. Every modern surface-to-air missile system, from the Cold War Nike series to the Patriot batteries of the 21st century, descends conceptually from the SCR-584. Its lesson was clear. Human reaction time had no place in air defense. Victory in the skies would belong to the side that fused radar, computation, and firepower into a single automated cycle. The Luftwaffe had learned this too late, and at devastating cost. While wartime record losses obscure the full picture, surviving data provides a stark portrait of the system's effectiveness. Confirmed production. Minimum 1,700 units manufactured, with Chrysler alone documenting 2,298 peak output, over 50 units per month at wartime production levels. Combat record, Anzio. First night, 7 of 12 bombers destroyed, 58% kill rate. D-Day, 39 units provided complete air defense coverage for the invasion fleet. V1 campaign. Interception rates rose from 17% to 82%. With ammunition efficiency improved 25-fold. Technological advantages of the SCR-584 included operation on microwave frequencies beyond German detection or jamming, automatic conical scan tracking that removed human error, integration with the M9 analog gun director, performing 30 ballistic solutions per second, mobility and ruggedness, allowing deployment within 30 minutes in any terrain. Industrial scalability, with modular parts enabling repairs by minimally trained crews. In the end, the SCR-584 was more than a radar. It was the first true integrated air defense system, a machine that combined American engineering, mass production, and computational foresight into a single decisive weapon. For Germany, it was an invisible adversary they never learned how to fight. For the Allies, it was proof that in modern war, the battlefield would be decided not only by courage or numbers, but by mathematics, circuits, and machines that thought faster than men. Detection range, 40 miles, double that of German equivalents. Accuracy, 75 feet, compared to Germany's 500-plus feet. Tracking, fully automatic, while German crews still aimed manually. Setup time, 30 minutes, versus the German standard of 2 or more hours. The German encounter with the SCR-584 offers enduring lessons about technological surprise in warfare. Convinced of their own superiority, constrained by outdated theoretical assumptions, and unable to imagine American innovation, German leaders sent their air crews into battles they did not understand and could not win. General de Flieger Paul Deichmann summarized the failure bluntly. "We believed what we wanted to believe. Every piece of contradictory evidence was explained away. We could not accept that American engineers had achieved what our scientists declared impossible. By the time we faced reality, the Luftwaffe as an effective force had ceased to exist. The failure was not rooted in poor intelligence collection, but in flawed interpretation." German observers reported American anti-aircraft effectiveness with accuracy. Their reports were dismissed, not for lack of detail, but because they contradicted deeply held institutional assumptions about American capabilities. This cognitive blindness proved more damaging than any Allied deception campaign. The SCR-584 embodied the essence of American industrial philosophy: mass production, standardization, and simplification. Rather than pursuing handcrafted technical perfection, American engineers designed systems for reliable mass manufacture, an approach born in the automotive industry. For military purposes, it proved vastly superior to Germany's artisanal precision-first culture. The contrast extended beyond engineering into operational philosophy. German military culture prized specialization and expert skill. American design emphasized automation and accessibility. The genius of the SCR-584 was that it removed human skill from the equation altogether, making expertise unnecessary. Where Germany fielded complex systems that only highly trained crews could operate effectively, America deployed weapons any draftee could master in 6 weeks. The result was decisive. German pilots fought with valor, but against an opponent who had transformed war into mathematics. In the skies over Europe, it was not courage that decided survival, but circuits, servos, and computation. The Luftwaffe never recovered from that realization. This democratization of advanced technology proved decisive in total war. The SCR-584 marked the end of aerial combat as a contest of human skill and inaugurated the age of automated warfare, a legacy that endures today. For the Luftwaffe, this shift arrived as an incomprehensible shock. They entered the war as knights of the air and exited as victims of mathematical precision. Johannes Steinhoff, reflecting decades later, captured the essence of the transformation. The SCR-584 didn't just shoot down our aircraft. It shot down our entire conception of warfare. We thought war was about courage, skill, and will. The Americans proved it was about technology, production, and automation. We were magnificent warriors defeated by superior machines. The SCR-584 stands as one of World War II's most decisive weapons, not simply for the aircraft it destroyed, but for what it represented: the triumph of systematic technological superiority over traditional military virtues. The Luftwaffe faced an enemy that couldn't miss because human error had been eliminated from the aiming process. German pilots never fully understood what confronted them. Their leadership could not accept it. Reports of impossible anti-aircraft accuracy were dismissed as exaggeration. Evidence of automatic tracking was ignored as impossible. By the time German scientists examined captured SCR-584 units and comprehended the technology, the Luftwaffe had already been reduced to ineffectiveness. Germans never realized that American radar had devastated the Luftwaffe because acknowledging it would have meant admitting fundamental inferiority in science, industry, and military innovation. That psychological barrier proved insurmountable until defeat made denial impossible. For the Luftwaffe aircrews who faced it, the SCR-584 was death calculated by machines, delivered with mathematical precision and immune to human courage or skill. They flew into an electronic killing field where their fate was computed before they arrived. The age of warrior pilots ended in the skies over Europe, destroyed by American radar that tracked invisibly, calculated instantly, and killed automatically. The legacy of the SCR-584 extends far beyond its wartime service. It established the blueprint for modern air defense and proved that, in technological warfare, victory favors the side that automates the kill chain. The Luftwaffe learned this lesson through the systematic destruction of its combat power, aircraft by aircraft, executed by machines that never tired, never missed, and never knew mercy. The Germans never understood until it was too late. They were not fighting American gunners. They were fighting American mathematics, embodied in radar systems that turned the sky itself into a computed killing zone. Their courage, skill, and experience became irrelevant factors in equations they could neither see nor survive. In that terrible revelation lay the birth of modern warfare, where victory belongs not to the brave, but to the technologically superior.